About me, just to get started, and so you know who I am and what my background is. I've been a lead mentor with the Foothill Consortium. This is my second year serving in that role, and I've been mentoring in the Foothill Consortium for 4 years. I am currently a teacher on special assignment for intervention and instructional support. And as all of us in this profession this year, that looks very different than it ever has before. But I'm finding a renewed love of teaching when I actually am sitting on even Zoom with my students and able to support them. I have 14 years teaching experience. I stepped out of the classroom. I was a 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teacher in a multi-age class. And before that, taught 1st, 2nd, and 3rd and different combinations of that. So have elementary experience, and I'm for our district a Thinking Maps professional development trainer. And in my personal time, I'm also a runner. I love to read, and I also am a doula and support women who are giving birth. So got lots of different interests, and so that's a little bit about me. My information is on, my email address is on the screen there. It will also be provided at the end of the presentation, but you're welcome to reach out after this presentation with any of the resources that will also be shared with you at the conclusion of the presentation. You're welcome to do that. All right, so as Patrick, so the workshop goals here connect to both the induction standards as well as the educational leadership professional standards. And those two are listed at the top. The work and the information that I will be sharing is there at the bottom. So we'll go over federal and state laws. We'll consider language and vocabulary for inclusivity. We'll practice responding in some scenarios. I'll share a plethora of resources with you, and then we'll consider the plans for next steps for building inclusivity in your room, at your school, or to even strengthen what you already have in place. So that's where we're headed. There will be documents on the screen this afternoon that will be provided to you at the end of the workshop in a resource folder. So Patty will be sending a Google Drive link that has all of the handouts that you'll see on screen. So you'll have a bunch of information to take away and to process and follow up with at the conclusion of the presentation. So we're going to get started with the Welcoming Schools video. Welcoming Schools is a subsidiary of the Human Rights Campaign, and Welcoming Schools has an extensive website and resources and information, and this is its sort of an opening video. So I just want.
It was in 2nd grade, and we had like a big meeting.
The teacher said stuff like, do you know what it means to be gay, and is it a bad thing to be gay?
And then he just laid down a few things that was like, no teasing about who your parents love. Love is love, and you shouldn't turn love into hate. That's basically what he said.
A lot of kids in our school, they know the word gay because even kindergartners know it.
Sometimes people at my school call each other like gay or something like that when they're angry at them.
This guy came up and he went, "Oh man, you're gay." And I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Okay, so there's these two people. They're a boy and a boy, or a girl and a girl. And they love each other.
There's a boy teasing me for having gay dads.
Oh, do you think you're gonna be a lesbian? I hope not.
We don't use gay like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 every 7 seconds. But we will like say it sometimes.
I wish more teachers could elaborate on it and talk about it more instead of like 2 sentences and then dismiss the subject.
Teachers don't like do nothing. Like if I get bullied, they'll help me, but not in the sense that they're teaching the other kid not to do it.
That stuff lasts forever.
it stays in their minds and it haunts them. So I think that it should be not accepted and it should be addressed immediately.
Yes, elementary school kids know the word gay.
So important. So thinking about why we build inclusivity at school, we heard from students' voices and what feeling safe and feeling protected and feeling supported, how much that means to them, on an emotional level. But inclusivity, it not only advocates for students, it certainly strengthens school climate and makes school a place that everyone feels welcome. But it also increases academic achievement. And as educators, right, we're like, okay, this is our goal, but how do we get there? Finally, it's the law. And I'm going to start today just by going into some federal laws and constitutional rights. So this is one of those Welcoming Schools handouts that I will have in your resource folder. So don't worry about squinting and trying to read all of it. You'll get this. I'm going to highlight just a few things about these 4 federal laws and parts of the Constitution that are important for us to consider. So the first one being the First Amendment, which we know protects both freedom of speech and expression. It also states that schools cannot prevent students from expressing their identity or discussing same-sex families. So students have the right to talk about their families and themselves. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment guarantees every citizen equal protection under the law. This clause is frequently used to protect LGBTQ youth in schools who have faced unfair or discriminatory school actions or policies. This is also the clause that was used in Brown versus Board of Education to strike down state-sponsored racial segregation in schools. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibits schools that receive federal financial assistance from limiting or denying a student's participation in any school program based on the basis of sex. And then finally, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act is a federal law that protects the privacy of student educational records. And this one comes into play especially for transgender students who may be using or going by an alternative name or pronoun. It's the FERPA law that is protective of their rights as individuals. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like in a bit. There's also California law. So within California, Seth's law, or AB 9, it mandates that school personnel that witness an act of discrimination, harassment, or intimidation or bullying must intervene immediately. So students are protected and personnel are mandated to step in and protect students. The California Student Safety and Violence Prevention Act protects LGBT students and those perceived to be LGBTQ from harassment. The School Success and Opportunity Act ensures that transgender students have access to bathrooms, locker rooms, and sports teams that align with their gender identity. It also allows them to change their name and or gender marker on student information systems without a legal change and this is really important, without parent permission. And finally, the Gender Identity Bill is a California bill that allows for the non-binary gender marker option on things like your license. This is also the bill that required that bathrooms be all genders rather than gender specific in our state. So lots of legal laws that support the protection of students in schools, in their school environments. And climate look like for transgender students. So this is a study that was conducted by the National School Climate Survey in 2015. So it's a bit outdated, but GLSEN, it's from GLSEN. And it included responses of over 10,000 LGBTQ students in 6th through 12th grade. So largely 75% of transgender students feel unsafe at school. The harassment and assault at school, 65% have been verbally harassed, 25% physically harassed, 12% physically assaulted. The survey indicated the lack of support that students feel from school personnel. And the negative remarks about gender expression from both their peers and from school personnel, and then the lack of response. So this is a real problem for a growing number of our student populations. So what are some of the things that we can do to start making our schools more welcoming? And I want to share a story. This is a story, we'll see if we have the same. This is a story called Red. This is an adaptation of Red. It is a crayon story. This is a book that I learned about through Welcoming Schools. So yeah, we'll talk about it afterwards, but let's take a listen to this story, Red.
Red, a crayon story by Michael Hall.
Uh-oh.
As told by me.
He was red. He wasn't very good at it.
Oh dear.
His teacher thought he needed more practice. I'll draw a red strawberry, then you'll draw a red strawberry. Really? You can do it.
But he couldn't really.
Like this?
Oh my, let's try again. His mother thought he needed to mix with other colors. Why don't you two go out and draw a nice round orange?
A really big one.
A really orange one.
But they made a big greenish one.
Yuck. Oops. His grandparents thought he wasn't warm enough.
Your class is making self-portraits for Parents' Night. Wear this warm red scarf.
Nice, it's so you. But it so wasn't.
Oh, dear me.
Everyone seemed to have something to say.
Sometimes I wonder if he's really red at all. Don't be silly, it says red on his label.
He came that way from the factory.
Frankly, I don't think he's very bright. Well, I think he's lazy.
Right, he's got to press harder.
Really apply himself. Give him time, he'll catch on.
Of course he will. But he didn't catch on.
Green frog.
Black sheep. Brown cow. Red ox. The art supplies wanted to help. The masking tape thought he was broken inside. This will help hold you together. The scissors thought his label was too tight.
One snip should do it.
I thought he wasn't sharp enough.
Stay still now.
But even with all our help,
and all his hard work,
he just couldn't get the hang of it. One day he met a new friend.
Will you make a blue ocean for my boat?
I can't, I'm red.
Will you try?
So he did.
Thank you, it's perfect.
You're welcome, it was easy.
And he didn't stop there.
Bluebells. Blue jeans.
Invincible.
Bluebird. Blue whale. Blueberries.
I'm blue.
He was blue, and everyone was talking. My son is brilliant. Who could have known he was blue? His blue ocean really lifted me. It was obvious. I always said he was blue. All of his work makes me happy. His blue strawberries are my favorite. He's so intense. I'm going to make a green lizard with him, a really big one. I hear he's working on a huge new project. He's really reaching for the sky. And he really was.
One of the things that in this line of work or in this move towards inclusivity is a huge thing is names and pronouns. So it is Title IX that requires school districts to ensure that students are referred to by their correct name and pronouns aligned with their gender identity. And I've put just some gender pronouns. Most commonly, for me personally, I have not heard of Z and V, but they have what looks like as the subjective, objective, possessive, reflexive. If you do a Google search, there's many more than this. But the examples of these are really helpful because one of the things I often hear people say is that it's hard for me to use they because we use it as a singular in the English language and now it's a plural word that's singular. There's lots of things about language, and as language changes, it is hard for us to make changes. But it's really important to practice so that we are identifying and recognizing people for who they are. I have this in the resource guide at the end, but there's this little, a quick and easy guide to they, them pronouns written. And like I said, you don't have to write this down. I have it at the end of the presentation. But it's written like a comic strip, but it has kind of a practical guide, a conversation between two characters about why pronouns matter and how you can use them in a collegial setting, in a professional setting. But this is a really great resource if you're just starting out, sort of getting used to the changing pronouns that people may be using. Places to use a student's name and pronouns could be some of the things listed on the screen. So a student ID, a yearbook, an attendance roster, school newspaper and letters, desk labels, sports teams rosters. It is definitely a sensitive issue and not a one size fits all in the sense that some students are comfortable at school expressing themselves more so than they are at home or vice versa. So our intention is never to out a student to either their families or at school if that's not their choice. So this is not a oh my goodness, I know a student who's transgender, we're going to make sure all of these things are. It's definitely conversation and built on an individual basis, just like we would with our students and making sure that they feel comfortable with the places we have their name and pictures of them, things like that. I want to just share a quick, this is a quick video. This is made by student artists and singers at UArts in Philadelphia, but it illustrates the points of the importance of restroom and locker rooms, which are some of the most volatile places for LGBTQ and transgender students. This brings a little bit of levity and artistry, I think, to that conversation.
Cis, trans, gay, straight, rise up, rise up. Bathrooms can be really great. Rise up, when nature calls, let's rejoice. Rise up, and use the bathroom of our choice. Rise up, adults sometimes get uptight. Wise up. Bathrooms have no wrong or right. Wise up. Bathrooms are a public space. Rise up, rise up. Every gender, every race. Rise up.
So how do we we do this? How do we, like I was saying, the front loading part of teaching, of actually actively teaching about families, about gender, about who we love, in older grades, sexuality, right? And so teaching vocabulary and practice and providing opportunities for students to practice is as important as I was saying before about us learning to practice and be comfortable with these topics. So a focus on love, family, and respect is really important. Asking clarifying questions. These are more targeted for younger students, but providing simple answers that are age appropriate, embracing teachable moments, of course, and then practicing. There is a resource that will be in your resource folder about with gender and who you love, sexuality vocabulary included, as well as the lesson plans that I've already said I'll share with you, that will be shared at the end of the workshop. But this is an activity that I gained from the Welcoming Schools as well. So the idea of using a gender snow person, and a way of explaining this to kids is that the head of the snow person is about identity, and this gender identity and how you feel. So it's how you feel inside, regardless of what you've been raised, what you were born with. On the opposite end of that is at the base of the snow person is the sex assigned at birth. So us making a guess at birth, like, okay, you have these parts, so we're going to call you a girl, or we're going to call you a boy, even though that might not match up actually with your gender identity. And then the heart of the snow person is sexual orientation. So this is the who you love part. So for younger kids, who you love, right? And then sexual orientation or sexuality as we grow. And all of those things together contribute to our gender expression. So how we present our gender to the world through clothing, hair, and mannerisms. So each of these is really important for students to understand what they mean and how they contribute, and our assumptions about, clothing. We make many of these all the time that are very gender normative, and just allowing students to have conversations about that. So the ultimate goal is that they can express themselves fully and be who they are without being teased or bullied about what they look like or who they love, right? Or their identity. So this is a way to start a conversation like that, and helpful way for kids to be able to understand. I wanted to just define this growing denotation of LGBTQIA+. And that is, it is a growing and it's changing demarcation on what that means. So the LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and then the Q oftentimes means queer, but sometimes means questioning. The I is intersex, A is asexual, sometimes ally, and then the plus is for the plethora of other orientations and identities. So it is important. There's a lot of vocabulary associated with both gender and sexuality that is growing. It's a growing and changing development, and it's just important to listen to what kids are saying, right? To listen to what family members are saying, and to collect those things so that you're ready on the end of being able to respond to students' questions and situations. So what do you say to "that's so gay"? And there's 4 pieces to this. And like I said, there'll be some further details, but I'm going to go over just a few things. So what do you say to "that's so gay"? 4 important steps is to stop it, to not ignore it, to educate, and to be proactive. So stop it. Using language like "it's not okay at this school to use gay disrespectfully to mean something is bad," right? So stopping it. But then even if you didn't mean to offend people who are gay, it's offensive to call this assignment gay or queer. If you don't like something, then say you don't like it. And that kind of goes to the educate, like be precise with your language and mean what you say. So what you're trying to say is, when it's just used kind of off the cuff. Don't ignore it. Harassment does not go away on its own. Not speaking up teaches students that are targeted, as well as anyone within hearing range, that they will not be protected from this kind of harassment. Taking action reaffirms limits. Interrupt name calling and harassment. It's not always easy, but with experience and with practice, we will and can grow our comfort level with not ignoring situations that come up. Educate is third on this list. However, I think maybe putting that first, that front loading piece of we've had conversations where we're establishing the kind of school climate that we want prior to things coming up, so we have something to fall back on, is really important. So if you have the opportunity and time to educate on the spot, then do it. If you don't, making sure that you follow up later and plan to make sure that there's a closed loop if and when something comes up. And in lessons on respect and prejudice, civil rights, including information about discrimination, about LGBTQ people and the civil rights movement is really important. And then being proactive, just establishing that environment of respect and caring for all the students in your school and classroom, using inclusive language, having books that represent the kinds of families and people that you have in your room and other materials. And then developing the capacity of educators and students to be allies that stand up for students who are harassed are some of the ways that you can respond to anti-LGBTQ comments. To reduce that topic, families that support our students, I want to share with you a quick video from Welcoming Schools.
My name is Joe Garte, and I live in Brooklyn. I am a teacher and an entrepreneur and a father. When Pernell came out, I was so excited to have this little girl. It was that feeling of there's just love here. Very early on, I noticed that there was something different about the way that Pernell interacted with the world. Very early on, I would say, 3, maybe even 2, wanted to cut his hair short, never played with dolls, always played wrestling and rough and tumble. That was different. Just the intensity of Pernell wanting his hair to look like a boy's, or the total rejection of a dress. And then it became not wanting to wear pants that had pink stitching on the inside of the seam. I asked Pernell, I asked to speak to Pernell, and I remember we went outside and I said, hey Pernell, Mom is telling me that you want me to call you a boy, but I need to hear that from you. And Pernell said, I'd like you to call me a boy. I said, okay, I'll call you a boy. And it was as simple as that. At that point, it wasn't really a hard decision, because to me, what difference does it make, a boy or a girl? I want you to feel that I'm confident in you and that I love you. Looking forward, there are a lot of things that worry me. It's difficult to protect our kids from those who want to hurt them. But I do want to instill the confidence in Pernell where he can stand up for himself and express it as well. And I think he's getting there. What makes you happy is the people that you're around and getting to spend time both with them and other things that you love. What I really want for Pernell is to have that, is to have the people around him that he loves and to be able to do something that he enjoys. I don't think that the father's perspective is seen often because we're often the second person to know. But it doesn't mean that we don't play a huge role in how that child is raised and how they succeed or fail. The one thing I want Pernell to always know is that I am always here and his family's always here. And no matter what happens, no matter how hard things get, I'm always here and he's always great. That's happiness to me.
So an affirming family may ask the student how they can support them, listen and trust their journey, as we saw of the father in the video, increase the well-being and resiliency of their student, or consider the school a resource. When working with a non-affirming family, it's really important just to recognize that school may be the student's only safe place to be themselves. Ensuring that the student has 1 or 2 anchor adults for support at school is really important, and finding ways to support the student without outing them. That is, if family is not aware of something that they shared at school, which can be a very fine line. We definitely go through this in lots of different realms of being a support to students, but wanting to also make sure that we're protecting them, right? And in this case, that is a really important aspect of this work. In your resource packet, there is a checklist for a welcoming and inclusive school environment. And don't worry again about this fine print. I want to just talk about the sort of headings. The first one has to do with inclusive language. So considering, and you can go through this and say, yes, we're already doing this, or this is something I want to work on, or, oh my goodness, this is something I haven't thought of before. But checking through student forms, handbooks, and school home communications to ensure inclusivity. The second section, I love the image of this, mirrors and windows. So the idea of, does the diversity of the books and the images that are presented in your school environment, do they reflect the lives of your students, and also do they reflect the lives of others? So they're mirrors for their lives and also windows to a world that they may not know, that they may not have access to. Speaking up to stop mean words and actions. Are you ready for teachable moments? Have you practiced how to respond when you hear your students say things like that's gay, or you act like a girl, or you're not a real family because you don't have a dad? These kinds of things that are microaggressions that happen on the playground that are really important for us to nip in the bud and address as issues of family and identity, like I was talking about before. And then school and classroom climate, setting a positive, inclusive tone for all. When someone walks into your school, can they tell that all students and their families are welcome? Do all students have an adult that they can connect with at school, even if that's not their teacher, but there's a network of people who are making sure that all students have a connection? And have you created and implemented clear class and school-wide agreements with your students that focus on respect and caring for themselves, not hurting others with their words or their actions? This is a really helpful resource and just kind of a check-in and reflection of where we're at today and where we want to head tomorrow and for the rest of the year and into the future. So why does all of this matter? The fact that students who experience acceptance at school are more highly motivated, engaged in learning, and committed to school is a reason. Students in classrooms where teachers establish classroom norms that explicitly value diversity are less likely to be teased based on ethnicity and are more likely to value school and get better grades. So this research connection is included in your packet as well. But the fact is that students can't learn if they don't feel safe, seen, and valued. And that equity and diversity topics are about academic achievement. And I love this image of the difference between equality and equity, right? We're always kind of searching for this balance with meeting our students where they are, but using the same tool for all students is not equity, right? Our students need different things. And this kind of building of an inclusive school and climate helps to meet more students where they're at. I want to just share with you two websites that include resources and lesson plans. So the Welcoming Schools is lesson plans for K-8, and they have so many resources. It's like, it's amazing. Just plan to spend to get lost in there, because all of these sections have so many great books. They have lesson plans that are already laid out by grade level, connected to standards, but that talk about how to develop inclusive schools, about bias and bullying, about understanding gender and supporting transgender and non-binary children, embracing family diversity. And then for grades 9 through 12, GLSEN is a really great resource that also has educator guides. It has a whole LGBTQ curriculum and curricula too that focus on bullying, bias, and diversity. So these are two great places to start. And you may already be using these resources, but I encourage you to revisit them and check, because they are also adding new materials often. I'd like to just end with, this will be the last video, so the last kind of challenge for us. But this video is called "This is the Year," and I know that this is a tough year. It's a different year than any of us have experienced, children and educators alike. And it is so important that this work about building inclusive and supportive spaces now more than ever, just because we're not with our students. And sometimes when we went over that slide just about the support that we can offer at school, sometimes school and being on even Zoom calls with our students is the safest and most connected time that they'll be with someone during the day. So it's so entirely important. So I hope you enjoyed this last video.
This is the year I learned how to read. This year I get to use an iPad.
This is the year I start middle school.
This year I'm a freshman.
This year I get to drive.
Man, this is the year. We finally made it.
So surreal.
Seniors.
My one chance to inspire.
This is the year to help students reach for the impossible.
This year, we help young people believe in themselves and redefine what is possible. We change lives. This is the year.
So this is the year to change lives. Let's work together to make all schools welcoming. And I want to share with you the credits and resources. So thank you again to Patrick and Patty for supporting my presentation and workshop this afternoon, but also to the Welcoming Schools and Human Rights Campaign and GLSEN. This PowerPoint is in the resource folder that you'll have in just a moment, but it has a link to all of the videos that were included in case you wanted to pass this on or you're going to share this with other members of your staff, as well as the books that were referenced in today's presentation, the Crayon Story, and then the Quick and Easy Guide to They, Them Pronouns. Like I said, it's a really entertaining read. So this concludes this workshop presentation. And at this time, I'll ask you, Patrick, to include a link in the chat to the Google Drive folder with the workshop resources. That includes a PDF, like I said, of these slides as well. You're welcome to stay if you have a question or any takeaways you'd like to share. Otherwise, I wish you a wonderful evening, and I appreciate you being here this evening. You're welcome to enter a question in the chat or unmute yourself if you have something to say.